First up here we have Hellraiser. I have had a chance to see this already. This was a rewatch for me. The first time I saw it, I don't think I entirely got it. I was kind of expecting something a bit more mainstream, akin to Nightmare on Elm Street. I wasn't kind of prepared for how bold and weird and unique Hellraiser really was. You know, Clive Barker, he's a very creative director and writer. He seems to get ideas into his head and then just had the confidence to run with it. And he created something genuinely unique, I think, with Hellraiser. Really interesting watching the commentary as well for anybody who has it. You get into his headspace about what he was thinking making this movie and each of the decisions, and it's, yeah, quite fascinating really, because it's definitely a movie that's worth exploring a little bit deeper. But I love this film now. On rewatch, I kind of had a completely different experience with it and really loved it. Definitely one of the most interesting, creative and exciting horror movies of the 1980s, but it's definitely a grotesque and weird film, so I do appreciate it's not for everyone. Next up here we have Hellraiser 2, the sequel. I'm intrigued to see this film again. I thought it was quite good the first time I saw it, but it's definitely one that sort of stuck with me. It's even weirder than the original, if you can believe, and it does go in a couple of directions that I don't think entirely work, but there is some really bizarre and interesting stuff in there, and I've just randomly had this movie in my head for a while, so when it came up on sale with Arrow, I thought, why not get it and kind of check it out again. Again, loads of good features and stuff on these Blu-rays as well, which I'm intrigued to check out. But yeah, I do want to see this again. I did like it the first time, but I think I just wasn't in the right mood. I'd been watching some other movies with friends beforehand of a completely different genre. So like once they left, I thought, oh, I'll stick on another film. And I watched this, and it was just a bizarre change of genre, and I couldn't fully get into it. But I'm certainly interested to check it out again. Next up here we have Exorcist 3. This is one I was interested to pick up because a lot of people have said that not only is this the best Exorcist sequel, but some people actually prefer this to the original. And I have seen this so far. I definitely don't think it's better than the original, but it's still an interesting film. I did kind of have that sense through a lot of it where I didn't entirely understand what was going on. It's kind of the look into this case between these two people, and somebody's possessed somebody's body to do something. I don't want to give too much away for anybody who hasn't seen it, but it's a rather strange film, and just the kind of the way it plays out. It's a little bit surreal and dreamlike, I think. So again, it's probably another film that you'll get more from on repeated viewings. I thought the performances were really good. You've got George C. Scott, you've got Brad Dourif, and yeah, it was an interesting film. I'm glad I watched it, but definitely not for me one that stuck in my mind the same way the original Exorcist has. But I would definitely agree that it's the best sequel so far. Although that's not really saying a lot, is it? Because a lot of the other sequels are kind of laughable. So no, this is a genuinely solid film, and I get why it's had a bit of a cult following. But just I'm not on that page of complete love for this film just yet. But again, it's another one that I will hang on to and I will revisit at some point. Next up here, I've got City of the Living Dead from Lucio Fulci. This is the third part of the Gates of Hell trilogy. I think it was coined by fans, not him himself, I don't think. They're kind of unrelated stories, but they all carry the similar theme. And they're definitely an acquired taste, the Fulci films. I get this with kind of all of the big Italian horror movie filmmakers, Fulci, Argento, Bava. They don't really do as much for me, it seems, as other people. You have to kind of be able to accept the dream logic of their worlds and just immerse yourself in the experience and kind of turn a blind eye to the weird storytelling and stuff throughout their films. I've seen the other two of this trilogy. I wasn't a huge fan. I didn't really like House by the Cemetery, and I can't remember the name of the other one right now. But I wasn't a huge fan of it. There's some creative and interesting stuff in there, but I don't fully get it, although I have reliably been told this one's the best of the three. So I'm interested to check it out. Again, it was another one I got on a deal from Arrow, and one thing I can say about Fulci is I'm interested to check out his films. There's something about them where I'm curious to see what they're about, even if they're not really my thing. I did kind of like Zombie. Zombie was quite good for what it was. But yeah, this is the last one of his big ones, so I will get around to that soon. Okay, speaking of the Italian horror filmmakers, we've got Argento as well here, Deep Red. Had this in my collection for a while, haven't got round to it yet. As I was just saying, not huge on Argento's films. I quite like them. Tenebrae is probably my favourite of his so far. And, you know, they're kind of like, they're a little bit like they're inspired by Hitchcock films. You know, these kind of murder mysteries, slasher type movies. They're like a combination of the two of those. I guess that's what Giallo is really, isn't it? It's like low budget mystery slasher. And yeah, apparently this is one of the more accessible films of his, and meant to be one of the better ones, which he did in the mid-70s. So I am intrigued to check this one out. Again, lots of good stuff from Arrow. Their transfers are amazing, so they'll look good. It will be an experience to watch. But yeah, I will get round to this one again soon. Like to give these directors a chance, even if they're not entirely my thing, because I am kind of curious about their work and seeing a lot of it. So there we go. Next up here we have Oldboy. I sat down the other night to finally revisit this. I hadn't seen this movie in years and years, and it really stuck with me. So I first saw it when I was probably about 18, and I'd never really seen a film like it before, like a foreign film. This is from Korea, South Korea. The South Koreans, they have a much more unusual and unconventional way of telling stories, like the way they kind of blend genres together, where you get comedic elements, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of really weird, disturbing stuff. It can go really dark, it goes suddenly funny again. They're all over the place, but if you can get into them, they are really fascinating movies. And from all the ones that I've seen from there, Oldboy is still my favourite. It's a masterpiece, in my opinion. It's a truly amazing film. Great story about a guy who gets imprisoned for 15 years out of the blue, has no idea why. And you follow him coming out of prison and basically working out why he's been put there. And it's just a totally captivating film. It's beautifully made, really well acted, but totally bizarre story. You'll be absolutely gripped by this one, so I highly recommend Oldboy for any of you that haven't seen it before. Yeah, amazing. One of my favourites. Top film. Next up here we have The Burning, one of the more underrated slasher films, I think, from the 80s. It's kind of interesting because this one came out in the early 80s, around the time of Friday the 13th, but it never really took off the same way. It never kind of got that real... didn't hit popularity the same way that Friday did. But I actually think this is better. This is a better movie, certainly than the original Friday. It's a really solid slasher. It's got a great atmosphere, particularly like the first 40 minutes or so is really nicely done. Kind of this camp setting, taking place around this lake. It's got quite good character. It's got a nice vibe about it, and it's got a really unsettling tone as well. And when things start to really amp up before it all kicks off, it's a good journey. If you like kind of camp slashers, the more old school camp slashers from the 80s, this is one of the best ones in my opinion. So yeah, highly recommend you check that out for fans of that. Next up here we've got Crash. This is the 1996 film from David Cronenberg, not to be confused with the Oscar Best Picture winner that everybody hates from the 2000s. As you'd expect from Cronenberg, it's completely bizarre. How do I describe this story without spoiling too much? It's about people who get sexually aroused by being in car accidents. And there's an underground club of people that you're following these characters. They get in on this club and they start to meet these strange people, part of the community, and they start, raising the stakes. Things get more and more crazy, and these people just get immersed in this world. And it's a totally bizarre film, as you'd expect. But it was pretty good. It's a pretty interesting film. I liked the way it was made. I liked the way it was done. It's not as messed up as I thought it was going to be, considering the premise. I didn't think it was perfect because it kind of loses direction a little bit towards the end. Like in the second half, I feel like once it's kind of set up its concept, it kind of doesn't really know where to go from there. It needed a bit more of an explosive third act, I think. Not necessarily explosive, but it needed a more memorable direction to take itself. Whereas it kind of just, it's a series of events happening and that's it. So not sure if it's one I'll go back to again, but if that sounds interesting to you, check it out. Next up here, I've got The Crazies from George A. Romero, the original. This came out between Night and Dawn, somewhere in the early 70s. And it's an interesting movie. It's nothing like the remake, really. The remake is much more of your standard Hollywood, American horror zombie type action. Whereas this is a much more politically minded film. It's kind of a bit of a social, political commentary about virus epidemics, how the government deal with it, how they can maybe try to report on it, cover certain things up. Kind of interesting, especially after going through COVID. I think it makes the themes of a film like this a lot more interesting. But it is a lot more dialogue heavy. It's a very talky film. It's not so much centered around the zombie action, which is probably why it doesn't get talked about in the same kind of way that the Romero trilogy, like Night of the Living Dead trilogy, gets talked about. So it is a quieter film, but if that sounds like your thing, it's still an interesting movie and it's worth checking out. You know, it's not perfect, it is a little bit dated in a way, and the acting is a little bit subpar at times, and you know, some of it's a bit off. But it's definitely an interesting film, and it is worth checking out if you think you'd be interested in that. Next up here, we've got Last House on the Left. This is one of the early Wes Craven films. I haven't checked this out yet. I have seen the remake, so I know what the story's about, and it's for that reason I haven't watched this yet. I picked it up in an Arrow sale, and it's been one that I have been kind of curious to check out eventually, but if anyone knows the story, it's a really brutal film. And this one, I think, was filmed in a very documentary style way, so it has a lot of realism to it. So yeah, I just haven't been in the mood yet to check this one out. It's very dark, it's very harsh. So you've got to find the right time for this one, but I will get round to it at some point. I'm kind of slowly working my way through Wes Craven's filmography. You know, I love Scream, love Elm Street, so I'm kind of checking out a lot more of his more unknown films, and this is one from that list. So yeah, I'll get round to this one eventually. Next up, this was one from my good friend Brian Lomax. He very kindly sent me this. I know he's not the biggest fan. I'm pretty sure he's not the biggest fan of RoboCop, but I love it, and I think he knows I love this one. So he sent me this wonderful limited edition set here with booklets and cards and all sorts of interesting stuff. So this is the perfect set if anybody wants a night in kind of really deep diving into this movie. Yeah, fantastic set. And I'm kind of planning a night for this one soon to get my head in. I love the film RoboCop. I really enjoy Paul Verhoeven's work in general, to be honest. A lot of really interesting satire, political commentary, interesting ideas immersed in this very over-the-top wild action and these crazy sci-fi concepts. I love his movies. Total Recall, RoboCop, Starship Troopers. It's great stuff, and yeah, RoboCop's one of my favourites, so really excited to having a night in with this set soon. So Brian, mate, thank you so much for this. Next up here, I have Jeepers Creepers from 101 Films. I know this is a little bit of a controversial one to own, just because of the director and the crimes in his past and all that kind of stuff. I do appreciate that. You know, it's one of those things that I feel like with movies, if we were to not buy a film that came from a creative force or a producer or some kind of involvement on board of people that had done something sus, you couldn't buy anything really, could you, to be honest? So it's always a bit of a difficult one. Some people can't justify owning these kind of movies, but you know, I loved the film growing up. I've always loved the movie. I think it's a very well done film, and it's one of those things, I guess, of just trying to separate the art from the artist, I guess, and got it for a good price as well. So I'm interested to see it in kind of HD quality, as I only own one of the crappy old DVDs of it. So, but yeah, one of the best horror films of the 2000s, I think. Really creative monster movie, really nicely done. Yeah, love this one. Okay, so we've got a few films here from Second Sight as well. First up, we've got Drive. This is a Nicholas Winding Refn film. Not one of my favourite directors, I have to say. I find his stuff to be a very acquired taste. And a lot of his other movies haven't really worked for me, but the stars really did align for Drive. I think it's the mix of having Ryan Gosling in the lead, a great soundtrack, really good script, and his directing skills on this film. The whole thing kind of blended together. It just works beautifully. It's an amazing film. It's really one of my favourites. It's really mesmerising to watch. Every scene is gorgeous to look at. Just the whole vibe and feel of the film. It's very surreal. It just kind of takes you to another place and puts you in this world. And yeah, Ryan Gosling's quiet performance as the lead driver, just amazing. yeah, again, one of those films that I saw much younger when it came out. Was it 2011? And hadn't really seen a film like it before, and I was just obsessed with this film for a while. And hadn't seen it for a few years, and saw Second Sight had done a version of it. So I had to pick this up and get my head into the features and all that great stuff as well. So yeah, highly recommended. But yeah, as I say, that this director is an acquired taste. Some of the other stuff, you know, Only God Forgives and Neon Demon, all that sort of stuff. Little bit off for me, but yeah, this is his masterpiece. Next up here, I've got The Blair Witch Project. Again, another one that I haven't seen in a long time now. Was kind of curious to revisit this film. I saw this when I was much younger, and I do remember it scaring me. It's was it the first found footage film, or one of the certainly one of the first really famous ones? Obviously, it turned a huge profit in the late 90s, and it was definitely a scary film when you first see it as a youngster. It's pretty effective, and I'm just kind of interested to see it again, see how it's aged. You know, we get so many found footage films. It's kind of set off a whole trend of these, didn't it? So kind of curious to see this one again. I always find it funny. I hear from a lot of people that, you know, kind of were at an age to see this back in theatres when it came out. And people always say about how the marketing made people think it was real footage and all this stuff. And it's like, I know in the late 90s, obviously the internet was a little bit more primitive and limited back then. But I'm like, guys, it was the late 90s. Come on, you thought this thing was real. You thought the Blair Witch tapes were real. What is wrong with you? So yeah, maybe it's just because I'm of a slightly later generation. That is just, I find that kind of funny that people claim to actually have believed this was real footage. It's clearly a movie, in my opinion. But yeah, maybe that's just because I'm watching it through the lens of modernity. I'm not sure. But it's a good film, though. It's an effective film. And if you can take yourself back to when there weren't a lot of found footage films, it's effective. It's a good film. Finally here, from Second Sight, I got It Follows, one of my favourite horror films of the 21st century. Just a fantastic idea. Yes, it had taken some ideas from stuff like The Ring, kind of this idea of a curse that's following you. But this one just did it in a really unique way. Brilliant film. I love Micah Monroe in the lead. She's a wonderful actress. The soundtrack to this from Disaster Piece is just absolute magic. It's kind of like I said about Drive, where you just got the perfect blending of things, of elements all together that just creates this masterpiece of a movie. And that is what It Follows is. Some genuinely scary moments, but it's just got a beautiful atmosphere. It's amazing to watch, really interestingly done. And just, God, what a cracking film. Can't wait to revisit this one. I've already seen it a number of times before. I'm hoping to introduce some of my friends to this one on Halloween this year. So, yeah, looking forward to seeing this one again soon. Amazing film. So that's it for this Blu-ray haul, guys. I'll come back again with some of my standard Blu-rays and box sets that I've picked up next time. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm a bit of a nerd that likes to go and watch other people's physical media collections, Blu-ray hauls, all that sort of stuff. So I kind of thought it'd be fun to share mine with you guys as well. So let me know what you think of the pickups that I've got. And yeah, so that's it. Do take care. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you soon.